So as I alluded to in my last video, we don't actually refer to the sides of triangles being the height and the base as you maybe are used to when you're doing, say, the area of a triangle calculation. Instead, we use the words opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. And so I'm going to start with hypotenuse because that's usually the most straightforward one. The hypotenuse is always the longest side of the triangle, of a right triangle. And so that's always going to be across from the 90-degree angle, which makes sense because 90 degrees is the largest angle in a right triangle. And so across from the largest angle should be the longest side length. So I'm going to label the hypotenuse in each of these triangles. Now, in terms of opposite and adjacent, those depend on which angle we are referring to, or the reference angle. So in the triangle on the left, angle A is my reference angle. And so across from angle A, across from my reference angle, we call that the opposite side. Okay, and beside our reference angle, in this case, beside angle A, we have our adjacent side. Okay, so now I have my three sides of my triangle labeled. Now, if I was referring to angle B, then in fact, this would be my opposite side. And over here would be my adjacent side. So what we should notice here is that the hypotenuse is going to always be across from the 90-degree angle. It's always the longest side in a right triangle. Whereas the opposite and the adjacent sides are dependent on the angle that I'm referring to. So when we're talking about the tangent ratio, and the tangent ratio being the ratio of the height to the base, we don't actually use those words anymore. Instead, we're going to say that the tangent ratio is the ratio of the opposite side length to the adjacent side length. Okay, so the tan of an angle is equivalent to the opposite length divided by the adjacent length in the right triangle. And so as you can see in our investigation, this reference angle stayed constant. So even though the triangle got larger, that angle was constant. And so our ratio of opposite to adjacent also stayed constant.